Hello, I'm Tamiriel.
And I'm Dion, and welcome to our channel, Grateful and Growing.
Now, today we want to talk about
Who raised you?
Yes, who raised you? And we're going to be talking about some trending topics, and this is really stemming from Oprah's podcast that was released right there at the end of November around Thanksgiving time about adult children going no contact. And so we are really starting to come into this era where we understand what impacts our peace, and we're making different moves. We're setting boundaries, but a lot of people are blaming it on the therapist. But if we can think back to our childhood, when you were young, was there any reason that you could think of that would be okay for you to walk away from family?
No. When I was young and the way we were raised, family was everything. Family before anything. And, we were taught that blood is thicker than water. We were taught that what goes on in this house stays in this house. And there was walking away or going no contact with family as a child was not a thing.
Yeah, and I think it was very, in the Black community, we can say that was not a thing. And especially if you were connected to any type of religious organization, because it was all about keeping secrets. Even when we know people in our family are harmful. Yeah. It's all about keeping secrets. You don't blast out your secrets. You don't let everybody know what's happening. But if that person isn't getting help, that means they're probably harming somebody else.
That's true. Yeah.
And the way that we were raised, it was just harmful. There was nothing good about us not walking away. But now that we have social media and we have people are able to tap into other people that are doing something different, we recognize we can do something different.
Right.
We don't have to keep these harmful people in our house, in our life, just because they're family.
Right.
And so there was a lot of good points made. Now, a lot of people were saying that Oprah was pushing it as trending. After I looked through a lot of the videos and I looked at the podcast, I can see where Oprah may have been playing on the words to get some, get that
overall feedback,
get the feedback and to push that content out. But you can also look at trending as a way as people going no contact is not trending. It's not a thing that you do because everybody else is doing it.
Right.
This is something that most people, it takes them a long time to get to that place. And it's a hard decision, but it's a solid decision. And when you're blaming therapists for doing it, it's because even in the Black community, therapy is just not something that you do.
Right. It's becoming more, in high school.
Okay.
Well, in high school, I did go to therapy in high school as part of a program because there was trauma, right? There was trauma. And so having those outside resources. Now, had it been left up to my mother to find therapy for me or to seek it out on her own, that wouldn't have happened. That was a recommendation that came from the school based upon, I guess, my behavior or whatever was going on with me in high school. So I did end up in therapy in high school. And I was able to pursue therapy on my own as an adult. But had that been something that had to organically come from my family, no, I wouldn't have been in therapy.
Yeah, me either. I was asked as a child if I wanted to go to therapy, and I was raised in the church as a baby. And when I was asked to go to therapy over a specific situation, my response was God was going to fix it. So that's how
programming.
That's how programmed I was. Because as a child, I shouldn't be saying God should fix it. It shouldn't have even been left in my hands to get therapy. It should have been my parents saying, you need therapy. We're going to put you into therapy because I don't know what I need as a child.
Therapy is more socially acceptable now, even in the Black community, I think due to social media. If you are inside the house and everybody in the house believes that the sky is brown, right? You're not going to be able to tell anybody inside the house that the sky is blue because they were raised to believe that the sky's brown.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not until you have an opportunity to come outside the house and look around and see, I believe the sky's blue. And what's so crazy is that you can look up at the sky for a minute and be like, is that brown? Is that brown? Or is that blue? I don't really know, because I've been programmed to believe that the color I'm looking at is brown, right?
Right.
And so it's not until you have an opportunity to go outside the house. And I believe that's what social media has done for us. It has opened up expanded our horizons to where we have more information. Like, information is inundated into us every day through social media and through the internet. And so you have more knowledge of things that are available, resources that are available. And because of that, I think mindsets are changing about therapy.
Yes.
Yeah, and what it can do for you.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, we go back to what happens in the house stays in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So when we come to therapy, we're like, well, I can't tell nobody my business.
Mm-hmm.
And why they want to know my business? I mean, what are they going to do that can't help me? I was even talking to some older people and saying, you need therapy. You need somebody to help. And they feel like, well, I've lived with it all this long. How is therapy going to help me now?
You still living. You still breathing.
So you just want to stick with that trauma. Okay.
Yeah.
You know you got trauma, and Jesus hasn't fixed it up until now, but you still want to continue to live in your trauma. I mean, there's a lot to say about that.
Yeah. It's the programming. I mean, what is it that our Christian says? Indoctrination is a hell of a drug.
Oh, yeah. Hell of a drug.
The addiction to... and the cognitive dissonance, like, you can actually know that this is the best thing for you, but because of your belief system and what you've been ingrained with, you absolutely reject it outright.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate for a lot of people, because, like you said, they just get stuck in that trauma. And
some people are comfortable in their chaos.
That's true, because it's familiar.
Yep. It's familiar. But it's sad, because we have to evolve. We have to come to a place where we're recognizing that we're evolving. And you're constantly saying, this is the way that I've always been. There's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
If you're not changing and you're not evolving and you're happy saying, this is the way I've always been.
And this is the way I've always done it.
Who are you hanging around? I mean, because we should be inspiring. We should be finding people who are doing things that are not like us, doing greater things than what we're doing, talking in a different way. Everybody that we hang with shouldn't agree with us.
Right.
We should have people in our group that have a different opinion.
Yeah.
It opens up our mind to do something different.
Right. And you can have intelligent discourse back and forth about things, which helps to expand your horizons again.
Yes.
In this podcast that Oprah had, they were talking about adult children going no contact with their parents. There were several TikTok videos, where I saw parents were like, I did the best I could. I gave them a good home. I, gave them everything that they needed and some of the things that they wanted. And they could not understand why a child would not answer their phone calls, right, or why their child would not come home for the holidays. And I'm sure the parents were very upset and hurt, because they feel like they gave their best, they gave their all. Of course, the parents love their children, right? They gave birth to them. They love their children. But they were very upset. And then on the other side, you had children who had gone through trauma at the hands of their parents that parents might not even be aware of. And at some point, they reached a level where they thought, you know what, I don't have to take this.
Right.
And so they cut them off to protect their own peace.
Yes.
And I think that's where the podcast came into. Let's hear what's happening in these different situations.
Right. Because a parent will say, one parent had explained that, well, I even asked my sons told me that I'm a great mom.
Yeah.
But we have to understand, our children, every child that you has experiences a different version of you.
Right.
So just because your oldest child says you're great doesn't mean that your youngest child is going to feel the same. Because not only are you a different version of yourself every time you have a child, they're just having their own experiences from their own mindsets of who you are to them in their eyes. And we can't neglect that, or we can't negate that.
Right.
Because we want to look at ourselves as, yeah, I gave them everything. I gave them more than what I've had. But it's not all about giving. It's about meeting a need.
And it's also about understanding and recognizing who that child is. You know, as a parent, you think my children or my child. But then understand that it's not just your child. That's a person. That's a soul, its own energy. And it has its own DNA. Even though it's connected to yours, it has its own DNA, and it is not a duplicate of you.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you're trying to impart your principles and your character, everything that you want for your child, you have to remember this is an individual.
Yeah. And one hard question I had to ask myself one time was, yes, I wanted my children to be, better. I wanted them to have more. But when I really sat down and thought about it, I wanted them to be like me. Be like me. That's not how I did it. That's not what I was doing. So I'm trying to craft them to be me. And I had to recognize they're not me. They're never going to be me. They are their own individual person, and they have to come to their own revelation about who they are and their journey. But because I was so used to somebody telling me
what to do,
what I was supposed to do, who I was supposed to be, how life was supposed to go, I took that same information and pushed it into my child.
Because you know what? Children don't come with instructions. And so you do what you were taught until you learn something better. Some of the reasons that adult children are coming into no contact with their parents, or coming to a point of no contact with their parents. Think about some of the extreme situations. Say, for instance, you've been to college and you've experienced a whole lot of different environments and situations and people, and your parents are hard MAGA fans.
Right.
And that is not your experience. That is not your belief system, right? Because you coming into your own, you are at a point where you're making your own decisions. You're trying to figure out how you're going to be an adult and how you are going to move throughout the world. And you realize that, the ideas and the things that your MAGA parents are coming out with just does not vibe with how you want to live your life and the type of person you want to be. Like every time you come in contact with somebody who is totally opposite of your belief system or your character, that's harmful. That's like a punch in the gut every time.
Right.
Every time,
It's energy. It's energy. Negative energy.
Negative energy. And how long will you subject yourself to that type of energy? And what does that type of energy do to you on a daily basis?
Right.
I definitely can feel when I come in contact with negative energy, and my whole mood will shift, and so it's my responsibility to protect my energy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why we have to know who we are. We have to understand ourselves, understand what is important to us, and we have to do things differently. So if you haven't been trained or you haven't gotten to the place where you really understand who you are and what you really need, and you're still operating off what everybody else told you, it's time to take a pause and figure out who you are.
Who you are, right. Another instance is a narcissistic parent. Now that's probably, that obviously is something that they were dealing with before they had children, right? So they brought children into the world to beat up on.
Right.
I mean, it's real and it happens. And now you have this child who's growing up under this narcissistic parent who has trauma from the way that they're being treated. And as they come up, at some point when they realize, first of all, they have to get past the programming that they've received from the narcissistic parent.
Right. Which is hard.
Which is very difficult, right? But once they come into that enlightenment, that is a point where they'll come to a point where they have to say to themselves, I need some boundaries. Like, I have to take care of myself. I have to protect myself, obviously, because my narcissistic parent is not going to do that. I am really just here for their pleasure.
Exactly. And that's really all what no contact is about creating boundaries.
Yeah.
I never knew what boundaries were. I wasn't taught to create boundaries.
Yeah.
And I was even, I have even been put myself in a position as far as my children. When you think about it, we're always telling our children, go hug your aunt, go hug your uncle, go hug the pastor, the people at the church. And sometimes the children's like, I don't want to. And we're like, go hug them, go give them a hug. And that is telling them that their boundaries don't matter.
Right.
They may have a feeling or an instinct, or they just don't want to be around that. And we're forcing them to be subjective to what we're saying and not subjective to what they're feeling.
Right. And that is a problem.
That is a problem.
Right. Because it leaves the child vulnerable. Think about all of the children who are LGBTQ plus and they grew up in religious families or just in families that are homophobic. Right. And think about how they are treated and how they are set aside, cast aside like the black sheep of the family. And some parents even put children out because they're gay. Yeah. Right. So that's a toxic family situation in which a person has to come to a realization, I'm worthy all by myself. Yeah. And in that point, they have to find a way to remove themselves from that toxicity. Yes. Because it will just continue to beat them down and steal from their worth, which stunts their growth. So there are a lot of different reasons why it does happen. What needs to happen in order for reconciliation?
Well, what needs to happen is, first of all, the parents need to hear the child. And instead of looking for a reason to say, I gave you everything, allow them acknowledge their experience. Yeah. Like, you have to acknowledge their experience, whether you agree with it or not. You have to acknowledge their experience, because if you can't even get to the ground point of acknowledging their experience, the relationship will never change. Right. It will never go beyond what it is right now. So if you're really wanting to heal that relationship, you've got to get to a point where you can acknowledge their feelings and their experience of you.
Most times that takes a deep reflection of self, and that is very hard. It's difficult for people to self-reflect and look at their shadows.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But it's necessary work.
It is necessary work. And I think that's the only way that you're going to be able to open up some form of communication, especially with a child who's gone no contact, because it's not an easy decision, like you said, for a child to go no contact with their parents. Right. Like, that's your umbilical cord. That's your lifeline. So if you've made the decision to go no contact, that's not a easy, on a whim kind of thing. Right. And so to compel that adult child to open up the lines of communication again, you have to, as an adult parent, have to show that something has changed. Right. Something has changed in me, in that I am open to having a discussion so that we can heal our relationship.
Yes. And so at the end of the day, our whole point is to let you think about the fact of who raised you and why do you think what you think. All right. Because it's not the therapist's fault that people are going no contact. It is therapists who are allowing us to see that boundaries are necessary and they are important. And if you have to put a boundary in place, you have to put a boundary in place, and it's okay. So maybe you're someone that has gone no contact and you can't find your community or know that there's other people out there doing it. It's okay to create boundaries. If you're that person that needs to go no contact and you don't know how to do it, you don't know how to walk away, you don't know how to set the boundaries, I would encourage you to get therapy so you can get to the point where you understand who you are and what you need and be okay with the decisions that you make.
When you get to that point of setting the boundaries, it's not a one and done. That is something that is ongoing. It has to be consistent, and it can be done in love. It doesn't have to be a fucking talk to me no more. That it doesn't have to be that. It can be done decent in love, so that you can at some point have that reconciliation and have a healthy relationship.
So be okay with change. It is okay to change, and we encourage you to find your community. And we're going to be talking about a lot of hot topics coming up. So make sure that you're subscribing to the channel and you're coming back to get more. So as we wrap up today, we want you to always remember that
the journey is the destination.